everyone, and welcome to my Switch Sports prediction series. What even is that, you may ask? Well, a commenter on my channel named Joey Paterno asked if I could make a prediction series for the hypothetical game Switch Sports. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of Wii Sports, Wii Sports Resort, and perhaps Wii Sports Club as well. In any case, I'll be doing a 3-part series giving my ideas for this potential game. Now, the first part, this video, will be covering sports that I want to see return, and ones that I don't want to see return, from Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. The second part will cover new ideas I have for sports, and the final part will cover my ideas for sort of gameplay and game modes. So without further ado, let's talk about the Wii Sports of the olden days. And first, we must talk about bowling. This sport was in both Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, and it should absolutely come back. Bowling was one of the best sports in the original game, and I'm proud to say that I've conquered it, as you may have seen from my post in the community tab. But in any case, it's a game that's easy to play with people who aren't into video games, as I've played this sport for years with my family, and they definitely aren't gamers. So I think bowling is almost certain to come back, including in the 100-pin variety. And now let's talk about tennis. This may be a bit controversial, but I don't think it should come back. Tennis was never really one of my favorites with its strange counting system and such. It's zero, not love. Grade A Under A has a whole rant about how stupid the scoring system in tennis is, so if you want a more detailed and better rant about that, go watch it. But in any case, I think what should come back is table tennis from Wii Sports Resort. It's more fast-paced and intense, and it counts up to 6 by 1. A normal scoring system. It should definitely come back with all those crowd noises that just make the game feel even more intense. The one drawback I could see of tennis versus table tennis is that tennis could be played with up to 4 players, whereas table tennis could only have 2. And hey, maybe regular tennis could ditch the weird counting system for the normal one, as seen in Wii Sports Club. But as of now, I much prefer table tennis over regular tennis, especially for its faster paced style of play. Okay, let's go back to another one of the original Wii Sports and talk about golf. This one should absolutely come back, just as it did in Wii Sports Resort. Out of all the original Wii Sports games, this is the one that definitely involves the most strategy. You have to count for the wind, how hard you want to hit the ball, what club you want to hit the ball with, all that stuff. I mean, it's no wonder that Summoning Salt did an entire video dedicated to Wii Sports Resort golf speedruns. Now those people have skill, much more skill than it takes to bowl a 300, I would assume. So overall, golf is certainly more fun to play than it is to watch, and I would hope it would come back in Switch Sports. Let's talk about another original Wii sport, which is boxing. This should definitely come back. Now, boxing wasn't necessarily that amazing in the original Wii Sports game. The controls felt a little clunky, as motion controls hadn't exactly been perfected yet, I don't think, but I feel like the Switch can improve on this, and it will feel like more of a boxing match with holding the much lighter Joy-Cons. The only problem I could see with that is Nintendo possibly getting legal action after someone accidentally hits their buddy, because it could happen with the Joy-Cons being much lighter. But hey, as long as people are smart, the fight will stay within the game, and I do believe that boxing should come back. And the final original Wii sport, baseball, I'm a little on the fence about. But if I had to pick now, I'd say no bueno. Now, I do actually like watching baseball. I'm a baseball fan, so you might be surprised that I don't want this back. But hear me out. The way that Wii Sports Baseball and Wii Sports Club control just make it so that offense is really hard to come by. You throw 95-mile-per-hour fastballs and you fool the batter with those annoying splitters, and you end up with 0-0 ties as the final score. It's not just my experience. When I watched the Professor vs. Troydan tournament, runs were very hard to come by. So unless there's some sort of way that baseball changes its controls to benefit the offense, I don't want to see it come back. And I just don't see Nintendo trying to overcomplicate the controls of the baseball game either. Nor do I see them making a game longer than 3 innings, because that would just drag things out. Now we're getting into the Wii Sports Resort exclusives, and we start with Swordplay. And this gets a resounding yes. Swordplay is definitely one of the better game modes in Sports Resort, and based on a lot of the people I've interacted with, it's the one they like the most. Sports Resort divided Swordplay into 3 very fun games, all with their own individual merits. Of course, you have the match where you just try to throw the guy off the podium. You also have the showdown mode where you become Bruce Lee and try to beat up as many people as possible. And then you have one of my favorites, Speed Slice, where you have to cut random item that is thrown at you faster than the guy next to you, and in the right direction. Of course, Matt is the referee there, so that only makes things better. Swordplay should definitely come back with all three of these modes. Alright, now let's talk about wakeboarding, and let's only talk about it briefly. It shouldn't come back. The game literally consists of you just jumping up as high as you can and the announcer going, "Whoa! Yeah! Great air! Nice jump!" That's all it is. It's overly simplistic, pretty boring, and should not come back. Now let's talk about Frisbee Doggo, and I think it should come back. Frisbee Doggo is a good boy. This is another chill game where you just throw the frisbee at the target and hope you get the bullseye. I guess frisbee golf could come back too, but honestly, why do that when you can play regular golf? The cute puppy is obviously the real appeal in this particular game. Next we have archery, and that's another sport that should come back. I believe just as the Wiimote and nunchuck made you feel as though you were actually playing as an archer, the same goes for two Joy-Cons. It may not feel quite as natural as a Wiimote and nunchuck, but I feel like it could still work. Archery was honestly one of my favorites from Sport Resort, with the thrill of getting a bullseye and the increasingly difficult targets always making things an exciting challenge. I absolutely love the announcer saying 10 whenever you get a bullseye. That's something I think that should come back for sure. Next we have basketball, and this sport also gets the green light. I personally don't think this is a super fun sport to play in Sports Resort, and I hope the controls are improved a little bit. But hey, it has been super fun to watch Professor rage at this game over the past year or so. So that's definitely a reason I want to see basketball come back, albeit with better controls. Particularly on defense, as I feel like guarding a shot should go beyond awkwardly jumping and flailing your arms in the air. Oh, and the three-point contest should come back as well. Next we have power cruising and canoeing, and I'm just going to lump these two together and say for sure that neither should come back. The water sports in Wii Sports Resort kinda sucked if I'm being honest, but don't worry, I do have different water sports ideas to discuss in part 2 of this video. In any case, it just isn't particularly fun for me to be on a boat of sorts and just trying to get from place to place on time, which is basically the gist of both power cruising and canoeing. Power cruising is more fast-paced, which does make it slightly better than the snooze fest of canoeing, but in any case, neither game is particularly fun, and neither game should come back. Let's now talk about cycling, and I do think that should come back. Cycling had such scenic and pretty areas in the original Sports Resort, and I'd love to see that stuff all come back in HD in a Switch sports game. Of course, you pretty easily run out of stamina in the Wii Sports Resort game if you're pedaling too hard, that is. This game kind of makes you be focused in that respect, and while that's not exactly the most fun way to play a game, it teaches you to be balanced and strategic with your health meter, I suppose. You don't want your character to stop in their tracks and lose all their hearts. So yeah, cycling should come back. And finally, we must talk about air sports. It should come back. I'll talk more about this in the gameplay and game modes part of the series, but I definitely think this game should take place at good old Woohoo Island. And you know what that means? More island flyover. It was just such a relaxing game finding those eye icons and flying into them. Dogfights weren't necessarily as cool, but hey, it adds a nice multiplayer dimension to the air sports game, so that should come back as well. But everyone loves the island flyover, and that should certainly come back. So in conclusion, the sports that should come back are as follows: bowling, golf, boxing, swordplay, frisbee, archery, basketball, table tennis, cycling, and air sports. That is a total of 10 classic sports right there, to add to the new sports I'll talk about in the next video. And the 5 that shouldn't come back are tennis, baseball, and the trio of water sports from Sports Resort. So what's your opinion? What should come back and what shouldn't? Let me know in the comments, and bye bye.